You know, there's something really powerful about small stories. A lot of people think that to learn English, they need to dive into big textbooks, memorize long vocabulary lists, or understand complicated grammar rules from day one. But the truth is, real fluency doesn't begin with all of that. It starts with small, simple stories, the kind of stories you can understand, connect with, and enjoy. These stories may look easy on the surface, but what they do for your brain, for your confidence, and for your fluency is truly incredible. Think about it. When you were a child, you didn't start speaking your native language by studying rules. You listened to stories, you heard people talk around you, you picked up sounds, patterns, and emotions. Language came to you naturally not because someone told you what a verb is, but because you heard it used in a story. That's the same magic that happens when you use short, level, appropriate stories to improve your English. These small stories give you something big context. Instead of learning words in isolation, you see how words live inside a sentence. You see how a character speaks, how a narrator describes feelings, how action is created through simple words. And because the language is easier, you're not overwhelmed. You're focused. You can follow along without stopping every 5 seconds to look up a word. That flow, that rhythm, that's what begins to build fluency. There's another reason small stories are so effective. They give you confidence. Every time you finish a story, even if it's short, you feel like you've accomplished something. And that feeling of success matters more than you think. It motivates you to read another story. It pushes you to try saying the lines out loud or to tell someone what the story was about. Before you even realize it, you've started speaking more, thinking in English, and understanding how the language really works. And let's not forget stories are memorable. You might not remember a list of 50 verbs. But if those verbs are part of a story about someone finding a treasure on an island, or someone helping a friend in trouble, suddenly you remember them. You remember the emotion, the meaning, the setting. That's because your brain loves patterns, it loves meaning, and stories are full of both. Now imagine you read just one short story every day. Just one. That's maybe 5 minutes a day. But over 30 days, that's 30 stories. Over a year, that's over 300 stories. And each of those stories teaches you something, a new phrase, a new way of expressing a thought, a new sound. Without even trying to memorize, you begin to absorb the language. You start noticing the grammar naturally. You stop translating in your head. That's not just progress, that's fluency in motion. Even when you listen to these stories, maybe in the form of a podcast or a video, you're training your ears. You're getting used to different accents, tones, and emotions. You're not just learning English, you're feeling it. You're experiencing it the way it's meant to be as a living, breathing part of everyday life. And the beauty is, you can start anywhere. Whether you're on your phone, sitting on a bus, relaxing at home, or even taking a short break at work, one story is enough to keep your learning alive. It's not about how long you study. It's about how often you engage with the language. That consistent daily contact with English, even in its smallest form, is what builds lasting fluency. So the next time you see a short story or a beginner-level English episode, don't underestimate it. That little story might be exactly what you need, not just to improve your vocabulary or your grammar, but to boost your confidence, to inspire you, and to keep your journey moving forward. Because small stories really do build strong fluency. You know, a lot of people think learning English starts with grammar books or vocabulary lists, but that's not really where the journey begins. The real journey starts much earlier, much deeper. It begins with belief. Belief in yourself, belief that you can do this, that you're capable, that your background, your mistakes, your fears, none of those define your future with this language. What matters most is your mindset. Because let's be honest, you can have the best learning materials, the best teachers, and all the time in the world. But if deep inside you keep telling yourself, I'm not good enough, I'll never be fluent, I'm too old, or it's too hard, then no strategy will work. Those thoughts will hold you back more than any grammar rule ever could. That's why the most important thing, the first thing, is your belief. When you believe in yourself, everything changes. Suddenly, mistakes aren't failures, they're proof that you're trying. When you believe in your potential, you stop comparing yourself to others. You stop thinking, look how good they are. And instead you start saying, look how far I've come. That small shift in your mind is powerful. It's the fuel that keeps you going when things get hard, and they will get hard. But belief keeps you steady. So many learners quit not because they don't have the ability, but because they don't believe they do. They say, I can't speak well, and that becomes their identity. But speaking is a skill, not a personality. No one is born fluent. Everyone who speaks English fluently once stood exactly where you are. Nervous, unsure, starting with simple words, but they kept going, and not because they were perfect, but because they believed they could grow. And belief doesn't mean you won't feel fear, you will. You'll hesitate, you'll doubt yourself, but belief doesn't wait for fear to disappear. It speaks louder. It says, even if I'm scared, I'll still try. It says, even if I make mistakes, I'll learn from them. That kind of belief pushes you to speak even when your voice shakes. To write even if your grammar isn't perfect. To listen even when you don't understand everything. That's courage, and it starts with belief. If you look at people who really improve, who make real progress, you'll notice something. They don't focus only on being perfect. They focus on being consistent. They show up every day. They read something, listen to something, say something, and every time they do, they remind themselves, I can do this. That simple sentence becomes their strength. It becomes a habit, and over time it becomes their reality. You also have to believe that your voice matters, that your thoughts, your opinions, your story, all of it deserves to be heard in any language, including English. Learning English doesn't mean losing who you are. It means expanding who you are. It means having more ways to express your heart and mind. But to get there, you need to believe your voice is worth expressing. I've seen people who were too shy to speak in class become confident speakers, not because they suddenly learned 1,000 new words, but because someone reminded them to believe in themselves. Maybe no one has told you that yet, so let me be the one to say it. You are capable of learning English. You are capable of becoming fluent. You are enough. The language journey is long. It takes time, but time will pass anyway. So why not walk forward with belief? Even if your steps are slow, even if you stumble, you'll still be ahead of where you were yesterday. You don't have to be the best. You just have to believe you can get better. And once you truly believe that, no grammar rule, no accent, no difficulty can stop you. Because belief makes you unstoppable. One of the biggest barriers English learners face isn't vocabulary. It isn't grammar. It isn't even pronunciation. It's fear of speaking, fear of sounding wrong, fear of making mistakes in front of others. And I get it. No one wants to feel judged or embarrassed. But here's the truth that many people don't hear enough. You have to speak, even if it's not perfect, because that's where the real growth happens. Waiting until your English is perfect before you speak is like waiting until you're fit before you go to the gym. It just doesn't work that way. Speaking is the workout. It's how you train your brain, your mouth, your confidence. The more you speak, the stronger your English becomes. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be real, honest, brave. Every sentence you try is a win. Every time you say something out loud, even if it's a little messy, you're building fluency. Think about how children learn. They don't start with flawless sentences. They speak broken language. They repeat what they hear. They make funny mistakes, and no one laughs at them. We encourage them. We smile, correct them gently, and they try again. That's exactly how adult learners should approach speaking. But somewhere along the way, we become afraid to sound wrong. We forget that mistakes are not proof of failure, they're proof of effort. They show that you're doing the hard thing, practicing. If you stay silent, your grammar might improve on paper, but your confidence won't. And confidence is built through action, not just knowledge. You can read all the books in the world, but if you don't open your mouth, if you don't try using the words you've learned, they stay trapped inside. You might understand others, but you won't feel free to express yourself. And that freedom only comes when you allow yourself to speak before you're ready. You grow every time you try. Even if you say, "He go to school," instead of "he goes to school," you're still learning. You've chosen to speak. You've taken that step, and guess what? You'll remember the correction better next time because you experienced it, not just read it. Mistakes made during speaking are the ones that stick. They teach faster and deeper than any textbook. The other beauty of speaking, even imperfectly, is that it connects you with people. It shows effort. It shows courage. Most people, especially native speakers, respect that. They don't expect you to speak perfectly, they just want to understand you. And more than that, they want to see you try. When someone sees you putting in the effort, it creates connection. It opens doors. So don't let the fear of judgment keep you silent. Let your desire to grow speak louder than your fear. And yes, there will be moments when you feel frustrated, when the words in your head don't come out the way you want, when you freeze, when someone asks you to repeat yourself and you feel like disappearing. But those moments aren't signs to stop. They're signs that you're in the middle of transformation. That uncomfortable space, that's where change is happening. Growth never feels easy. It's awkward, uncomfortable, and sometimes even painful. But that's exactly why it works. It's also important to surround yourself with people who let you speak freely, people who won't interrupt you every time you make a mistake, people who understand that learning a language is a process. And most importantly, people who let you feel safe to be imperfect, because the safer you feel, the more you'll speak. And the more you speak, the more natural English becomes. You don't need perfect grammar to express love. You don't need perfect vocabulary to tell your story. You just need the courage to try. The more you try, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the closer you get to fluency. So take the pressure off. Say the sentence even if it's broken. Ask the question even if your pronunciation isn't clear. Order the food, make the joke, join the conversation. Let the world hear your voice, because speaking, even if it's not perfect, that's where growth begins. When people think about success in learning English, they often imagine something big, long study hours, intensive courses, huge vocabulary lists. They picture themselves reading novels, giving speeches, or writing essays in perfect English. But the truth is, success in language learning doesn't come from doing something huge all at once. It comes from doing something small every day consistently, patiently, and with intention. That's why I always say, 1 sentence a day leads to success. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Just 1 sentence, but in that sentence is power. Power to start, power to show up, power to stay connected to the language. That 1 sentence might take you 5 seconds to say or write, but it creates a habit, and once the habit is there, growth becomes natural. You're not forcing progress, you're living it. There's something incredibly important about showing up daily, even for a short time. It keeps your brain engaged. It reminds you that English is part of your life, not just a subject in school, not just a goal to achieve one day, but something that lives with you. That one sentence becomes your proof that you didn't give up today. You might not have had time for an hour-long class, but you still moved forward, and let's not underestimate what one sentence can do. One sentence can teach you a new word. One sentence can show you grammar in action. One sentence can carry a feeling, an idea, a story. Over time, those sentences become a collection, your personal journey in English. Maybe today you say, I am happy. Tomorrow it's, I want to go outside. A week later it's, the weather is beautiful and I feel relaxed. Suddenly, you're not just learning, you're expressing. The biggest mistake I see learners make is thinking that if they can't do everything, they should do nothing. They say, I don't have time today, or I'm tired, or I'll study later. Days turn into weeks and suddenly the habit is lost. But one sentence, that's something anyone can manage. Even on your busiest, most stressful day, you can still say or write one sentence. And when you do, you keep the momentum alive. The beauty of that small step is that it often leads to more. You say one sentence and your brain wants to say another. You write a sentence and you realize you can add a second one. But even if you don't, even if it's just one, it still counts. That consistency becomes your strength. It becomes your edge. Not many people realize this, but the ones who grow the most in language learning are not the ones who study the hardest for 1 week. It's the ones who come back day after day, doing just a little, but doing it with purpose. There's something else that one sentence does. It helps you track your progress. If you save those sentences, maybe in a journal, in your phone, or even just in your memory, you'll look back one day and see how far you've come. What once took you 10 minutes to write will now take you 10 seconds. What once felt difficult will feel natural. You'll look at your own words and say, wow, I wrote that, I said that, I've really improved. And I promise you, it won't just improve your English. It'll change how you see yourself. You'll realize that you're capable of commitment, that you don't need a perfect plan, just a clear intention, that something as small as one sentence a day can become the foundation of something big. It can lead to conversations, to confidence, to opportunities. It can lead to success not just in language, but in life, because the truth is, how we do one thing is how we do everything. If you can be consistent in this, you can be consistent in anything. And that kind of mindset, steady, patient, focused, is the kind that builds greatness. You don't need to wait for the perfect day or the perfect schedule. Just start with today. Just start with one sentence. Because one sentence a day leads to success. When people first start learning English, they often feel overwhelmed. There's so much to take in: new words, unfamiliar grammar, different sentence structures. It's like being thrown into deep water without knowing how to swim. But there's one tool that quietly and powerfully helps you move from fear to fluency, step by step. That tool is a graded reader. And the reason I believe in them so strongly is because graded readers make learning both simple and strong. At first glance, they might look too easy. The sentences are short. The words are basic. The stories are not filled with complicated plots or advanced vocabulary. But don't let that simplicity fool you. That's the magic of it. You're learning without stress. You're understanding without translation. You're reading in English, not studying English. And that's a very big difference. Graded readers are written for your level, not above it, not below it, right where you are. That means you get to read without constantly stopping to look up words or reread confusing paragraphs. Your brain stays relaxed. Your mind stays open, and when you're in that calm, focused state, learning becomes natural. You start to notice patterns. You see how grammar actually works in real life. You recognize sentence flow. You begin to predict what might come next, and that's exactly how fluency starts. There's something deeply motivating about finishing a book in English. Even if it's short, even if it's easy, you still finished it. You went from the first page to the last, and you understood it. That feeling of success builds confidence, and confidence is what keeps you going. The more confident you feel, the more likely you are to keep reading, keep listening, keep speaking. So even if it feels like a small win, it's actually the kind of win that changes everything. What I love most about graded readers is that they let you learn like a child would, naturally, through stories. Through repetition, through curiosity. You're not memorizing a list of phrasal verbs. You're watching how those verbs behave in a real situation. You're seeing how people talk, how they react, how they express emotion. You're not just learning English. You're living in it sentence by sentence, page by page. And here's something even more powerful. The more you read, the more your listening improves. Your brain starts connecting sounds with words. You begin to recognize rhythm and tone. If you pair a graded reader with an audio version, you'll be training your ears and your eyes at the same time. That kind of input, clear, level appropriate, and consistent, is one of the best ways to develop natural fluency. People sometimes ask me, shouldn't I push myself to read more difficult texts? And yes, at the right time, challenges are important. But challenge without readiness only leads to frustration. If you want to grow strong in a language, you need to grow steady. And graded readers help you do exactly that. They allow you to build a solid foundation. No shortcuts, no pressure, just real understanding. And the great thing is, they come in all kinds of topics. Adventure, mystery, love, science, biographies. Whatever you're interested in, there's probably a graded reader for it. So you're not just learning the language, you're enjoying the process. That enjoyment matters. When learning feels like fun, you come back to it. You stay consistent, and consistency is where real learning lives. If you're someone who struggles with motivation or feels like you're not making progress, try reading just one graded story a week. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be difficult. Just let it be something you understand, something you enjoy, and pay attention to what happens. You'll start using phrases from the story in your own sentences. You'll remember the words because they meant something in the story's context. You'll stop translating in your head and start thinking in English. This is the kind of learning that sticks. It's not forced. It's not painful. It's strong because it's built on real understanding. And it's simple because it meets you where you are, not where someone else thinks you should be. So, if you really want to grow your English skills in a way that feels natural, steady, and enjoyable, don't ignore the power of a graded reader, because graded readers make learning simple and strong. There's something beautiful about the idea that your story improves when you do, because learning English isn't just about gaining a new language. It's about becoming a new version of yourself, a more confident version, a version that can connect, express, and move through the world with more freedom. Every word you learn, every sentence you speak, every mistake you correct, it's all part of a bigger journey, and that journey is shaping your personal story. When people start learning English, they often focus only on the language. How many words do I know? Can I understand this grammar? Am I speaking correctly? But what they don't realize is that something even more important is happening under the surface. You're growing, you're changing, you're pushing past fear, you're stepping into discomfort, you're showing yourself that you're capable of learning something completely new. That's more than language, that's transformation. Every small improvement you make doesn't just add to your language ability, it adds to your character. You become more patient because learning takes time. You become more disciplined because it takes consistency. You become more brave because you have to speak even when you're unsure. And these qualities don't just help your English story. They help your life story. Think about it. When you first started, maybe you were afraid to say even one sentence. Maybe you stayed silent in conversations, but then you tried. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but you spoke. That's growth. And with that one act of courage, your story changed. You were no longer just someone who wanted to learn English. You were someone who was learning English. You took action, you made progress, and that shift, that mindset, becomes the real story. It's easy to get discouraged when progress feels slow. Maybe you still struggle to understand movies. Maybe you can't always find the right word. But every step forward still matters. And the amazing thing is that as you grow in your skills, you start to see the world differently. You read something you couldn't read before. You watch a video and understand the joke. You send a message in English without using a translator. That's not just improvement. It's evidence that your story is moving forward. Your story becomes more powerful when you take responsibility for it. You stop waiting for the perfect teacher, the perfect course, the perfect time. You begin to realize that you are the author. And every time you choose to practice instead of procrastinate, every time you choose to listen instead of scroll, every time you choose to speak instead of stay silent, you're writing a better version of your story. What's also amazing is that your story can inspire others. Maybe you think your English isn't good enough to make an impact, but it is. Just by showing up, by learning, by trying, you show others what's possible. Maybe your friend sees your progress and starts learning too. Maybe your child watches you and grows up believing in lifelong learning. Maybe someone online hears your voice and feels less alone. Your story becomes more than just yours. It becomes a light for others. And don't forget, your story will continue to change. The person who is struggling today may be teaching others tomorrow. The one who is confused now may be confident a few months from now. That's the power of growth. It keeps evolving, it keeps building, and it never goes to waste. Even your struggles are part of the story. Even your failures. They're not something to hide. They're part of what makes your journey real and meaningful. So every time you feel stuck, remind yourself that growth is still happening. It might be invisible right now, but it's there. Like a seed under the soil, it's working even before you see the results. Keep going, keep believing, keep showing up, because every bit of progress, no matter how small, is shaping your story into something stronger, braver, and more complete. Your English is growing, yes. But you are growing too, and that's why your story keeps getting better, because your story improves when you do.